Hello, thank you so much for joining us today for Seeds of Hope, a conversation about World Central Kitchen's response to the war in Ukraine. I'm Elise Labott, your host for today's conversation. As a journalist covering foreign policy and international issues and a writer sharing stories from the world, I'm thrilled to be here with World Central Kitchen's Ukraine team. It's been over just 2 years since World Central Kitchen activated in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. And since then, World Central Kitchen's teams have stood shoulder to shoulder with Ukrainian teammates, who we call the food fighters, to provide food to families impacted by the war. Today, you'll hear from more of them about the response over the last 2 years, and more importantly, the current situation and the future vision. It's a pleasure to welcome the World Central Kitchen team, Olga Maksuk, the Ukraine country lead, Yulia Stefanyuk, Ukraine special advisor, Yulia Visatska, Ukraine media coordinator, Felix Carver, Ukraine activation lead, and John McClellan, World Central Kitchen's chief global safety and security officer. Now you'll hear from them shortly, but before you begin, some housekeeping. You'll have questions throughout the talk, so please put them in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer them in our conversation. And members from the World Central Kitchen team will be monitoring to answer questions in the chat as much as possible. And now, please welcome Felix Carver and Olga Matsuk.
Hello. My name is Felix Carver. I'm the Ukraine response lead, and with me is Olga Maksuk, our Ukraine country lead. Our mission began with a focus on feeding in bordering countries. We swiftly transitioned into providing support within Ukraine itself. As millions of Ukrainians face displacement, we recognized the immediate need for nourishment. In the early months of the invasion, World Central Kitchen served millions of fresh meals to those fleeing their homes and those who remained in the country, facing ongoing threats and occupation. Now, our efforts are concentrated on supporting frontline communities in eastern and southern Ukraine, where the need for food is urgent. The prolonged war has disrupted the local food supply, leaving many without access to essential nutrition. During these 2 years, our response has become more focused and emergency-related. We're addressing the immediate needs of those affected and ensuring the provision of nourishing support where it's needed most. We have 2 primary modalities of support for these communities. Hot meals are provided for those who cannot cook for themselves, especially those who have lost their homes or are living in areas experiencing escalated shelling. Food kits are delivered to frontline communities and complement our Hot Meals initiative, catering to those who have with the ability to cook, but facing various challenges in feeding themselves. WCK is also actively involved in projects that boost resilience among affected communities. Our Seeds of Hope provide seeds for people to plant and grow fresh produce at home, fostering self-sufficiency. World Central Kitchen is pioneering innovative water solutions, particularly in the Kherson region, in order to address the critical issue of clean water access. The Kakhovka Dam explosion in June compounded this water crisis when floodwaters contaminated groundwater wells. In response, our teams are revamping water systems to provide lasting, safe water solutions. Our emergency response strategies have also evolved to meet the demands of the conflict. World Central Kitchen's presence on the front lines ensures a rapid 1-hour response to any location, even in Western Ukraine. Local emergency leads in the West collaborate with SES teams and local governments, providing quick reactions to unique situations. Our focus on adaptability and quick response is crucial in the ever-changing landscape of war. We will continue to respond with urgency to the ongoing food crisis in Ukraine and show up for our neighbors, making sure that their food needs are met and that the Ukrainian people are not forgotten. I'm going to pass it over now to fellow food fighter, Olga.
Hello. My name is Olga Maksyuk, and today I am WCK country lead in Ukraine. I started my journey in the WCK mission on March 6, 2022 as a warehouse manager. I clearly saw how fast and on what scale WCK was able to deliver food aid, first to the borders, then to Lviv. And by the end of the March, the first kitchens was organized in all major cities of Ukraine. My colleagues will share with you more details about what our operations on ground are like and how we do this work. And they're very impressive. But for my part, I want to share my gratitude. Let me thank you all from every Ukrainian who received a hot meal while crossing the border, from every Ukrainian who received food while hiding in basements from shelling, from every housewife who sows seeds and harvests under rocket fire. All these years, we have all had a chance to live thanks to your endless support and help. WCK's mission has fed and is feeding hundreds of thousands of people at a time when it is the only opportunity to eat. I want to thank all WCK's investors, donors, and leaders for your continued commitment to supporting Ukrainians in these dark times. You're giving people hope, warmth, and faith that the war will end. Thank you. We are working together to victory side by side. Thank you all.
And now I'm going to welcome my colleague, John McClellan, World Central Kitchen's Chief Global Safety and Security Officer.
Thanks very much, Felix. Welcome to everybody on the channel here. As Felix says, I'm the Chief Global Safety and Security Officer for World Central Kitchen. I joined World Central Kitchen in September of this year, or of last year, and was tasked to put together the Safety and Security Department for the organization. Ukraine, as Olga mentioned, has been going on for us for over 2 years now, and it presents very unique safety and security issues for us, particularly with the mission that Felix has articulated for World Central Kitchen, in that we are serving meals in the front lines of the conflict. We're also responding to emergency situations where buildings have been demolished and emergency response teams are going in to assist. Our response, our security response, is dictated by a number of different ways. Firstly, it's dictated on a daily assessment of the risks in the areas that we are responding to. We get that assessment from information on the ground from our partners that we are supporting, from the military, and from other NGOs that are working in the area. That allows us to make an assessment of the ability for our teams to arrive on the ground safely and make their deliveries. We also have our a team of highly qualified and trained safety and security advisors that will accompany our distribution teams into these areas and ensure that they are well informed and well advised during their distribution. We also provide training to all of our teams in first aid, in hostile environment awareness training, so that they're prepared for situations that may arise. As we've mentioned, the situations are extremely dynamic. They can change minute by minute. Our advisor teams are in constant contact with our partners on the ground, and they will keep updating them as to what the situation is on the ground. And that allows us at a moment's notice to change our delivery times, perhaps cancel and have to reschedule, so that we're not putting our teams in danger. As we are going into these areas, we have armored vehicles, and our teams are equipped with personal protective equipment, so that any instances that happen, we are in a position that we can respond and protect ourselves. We've developed a number of activation, emergency evacuation plans, so that we are, if we do encounter a situation, a dynamic situation, we can get out of it quickly. Our daily assessments create 3 different levels of risk in the areas that we're going. We have a green risk, which allows us to operate fairly freely, and that's usually sort of 20 kilometers from the front line. Our yellow risk areas are closer to the front line, but where there's less activity. And in our red areas are those areas that are inside 5 kilometers from the front line. And we have different security protocols for each and every one of these levels of risk. As I say, that's informed by the constant information flow that we have from the people on the ground and our other sources of information. I'm sure that there'll be many questions on this going forward, but I'll hand it back to Elise now. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And thank you for Felix and Olga as well. We're going to bring everybody back for a little bit more chat about the World Central Kitchen's work in Ukraine. John, talk to us about whether the safety protocols implemented in Ukraine have informed safety protocols in other responses over the past few years, Gaza, for instance.
Yeah, so Ukraine was the first conflict situation that World Central Kitchen moved into. And it was very new for us, and it was, as Felix mentioned, very dynamic, and we effectively built the ship as we moved into it. We used the lessons learned in Ukraine when we responded to Israel, Gaza, and Lebanon, and it's allowed us to be much more proactive in our safety and security response to these conflicts, and created a situation within the organization where we're now in a position where we can reach these much higher risk areas.
Okay, again, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A function. I think that there was an issue with that, but I think we've resolved it. Felix, we have many audience members, and I'm sure you're always getting questions about people who are interested in volunteering with World Central Kitchen in Ukraine or elsewhere. So let's talk about how the local team is structured in Ukraine, and maybe a little bit how that differs in other areas. Because I think one of the things you probably hear a lot is, how can I volunteer?
Certainly, Elise. Whilst the reality of war prevents WCK from welcoming international volunteers, we're incredibly proud that our in-country team is entirely staffed by local Ukrainians who've been empowered since the beginning of the response to serve the needs of their neighbors. Our team of over 150 are structured into regionally based teams, which allows each team to gain a comprehensive and thorough understanding of the unique and ever-changing needs of their communities.
Talk to us about that model a little bit more, right? Because not only are you doing that in Ukraine, but you're also doing it in Gaza. And I think that's such an important part of what you do, because you're not only feeding people meals, but you're also helping these people in conflict help their people as well. So talk to us a little bit about that.
World Central Kitchen's model is really to support the local economies wherever possible. And so whilst we may deploy international teams in the onset of a response, we'll look to hand over to local individuals to really empower local communities to lead to support their communities as quickly as possible. And that's certainly the case in Ukraine and also in Gaza.
I think that's such a wonderful and important part of the work that you do, which is not just as I said, not just giving a meal, which is in itself just, so priceless, but also helping local teams feel as if they're helping their community, and it's also helping the economy. John, let's talk to you about how safety protocols differ in different cities, because not every situation obviously is the same.
Thanks, Elise. Our safety and security protocols are based on a risk assessment. As I mentioned, on a daily basis, we get updated information from our teams on the ground and from other information sources that will tell us what the risk is in the different environments that we're going into. And that, as I mentioned previously, we will have gradient red, orange, or red, yellow, or green. So it's not a case of different cities, it's really the risk environment that we're going into that dictates our safety and security response, and that's informed by the information that we get.
Mm-hmm. And Felix, I would assume also how, that's the same when you're identifying not just safety protocols, but where you need to deploy, and how do you identify where meals are needed? Because you would think that one city, it's, kind of peaceful, there's not a lot of fighting there per se, but the Russians are bombing in certain areas. So how do you identify where meals are mostly needed?
Absolutely. Well, in Ukraine, every frontline region has a local coordinator, and they work directly with their community leaders and local administrations to understand the needs in their areas. Community needs are then prioritized according to our criteria to ensure that aid makes it to those who need it most. We do look at some key indicators like the availability of gas, electricity, and water, as well as accessibility of grocery stores. Many of the communities we serve were under occupation, and since being liberated, need ongoing support. An independent monitoring team tour each region regularly and produce reports, which we additionally use to inform decision-making about the apportioning of resources at national and local levels.
Mm-hmm. And obviously we're entering the third year of the war, which surely must take a toll on the team. So what support systems does World Central Kitchen have in place to take care of the Ukrainian team's mental health and just, the sheer burnout of it all?
Living under constant threat of shelling certainly is traumatic for our team. And unfortunately, this is compounded for our emergency response coordinators, who are frequently first on the scene of indiscriminate attacks. Maintaining the well-being of our team is a top priority. And over the past 2 years, we've organized multiple team events, providing opportunities for relaxation, restoration, and relationship building. These events are essential for our on-ground teams who endure a lot of stress. Free therapy sessions and mental health courses further contribute to maintaining the team's mental resilience, crucial in the challenging conditions of humanitarian work.
Mm-hmm. Do we still have Olga with us? Yes, no? Okay. We'll talk to that about, we'll get that Ukrainian perspective from Yulia and Yulia when we have the next discussion. Well, thank you, Felix and John, for sharing with us today and for your incredible work. In a moment, we're going to continue the conversation with Yulia, with both Yulias. But first, we're going to take a look at World Central Kitchen's response over the last 2 years.
World Central Kitchen is entering our third year, supporting Ukrainians impacted by Russia's full-scale invasion. We arrived in the region within hours of the initial invasion 2 years ago. When we started, Kyiv, Lviv, all these places and people needed us, and we delivered. Now, World Central Kitchen teams are focusing our energy to support families on the front lines. Every day, I am amazed by the creativity and innovation of our teams. We are ensuring people get the support they need when they need it.
We create the emergency response team. In every big city now we have a person. It's like a local emergency coordinator who is responsible for the all situation which can happen in her region.
We had restaurant partners who were preparing 30,000 meals every day.
With the cooperation of World Central Kitchen, we make 200,000 of meals.
Якщо ти маєш змогу допомагати, це якби твоя місія невід'ємна допомогти тій людині, яка потребує.
We bought 10 blue kitchens. We split them all along the front lines.
Even more important than food, without a doubt, is water. The bombing of the dam obviously was brutal.
We installed a water filter that will clear technical water.
World Central Kitchen – це не просто про їжу, це набагато більше. Це про розуміння, це про підтримку, це про сердечність, це дуже велика допомога.
We must continue to stand by the people of Ukraine to ensure people impacted by the conflict, now entering its third year, have enough to eat.
Ми маємо пакунки, ми маємо автівки, ми маємо команду. То все маємо, це все вміємо, і ми вже рік це робимо.
We need to make sure that people feel that the world is not forgiving Ukraine.
Вам спасибо велике, що ви за нас думаєте. Дякуємо. Дякуємо таким людям, які нам допомагають, які нам співчувають.
Okay, I think we're going to come back and have our next discussion. But as you see, there is a QR code on the screen. It'll be on periodically. And there are so many people that want to give to World Central Kitchen, because these donations, just even a few dollars, helps give a Ukrainian or World Central Kitchen's programs in Gaza and elsewhere a hot meal and some hope. So we'll talk more about that throughout the program, but of course, the QR code is not appearing. It was appearing, but it will come back. I'm just seeing what we have on the chat right now. Okay, we're going to talk with Yulia and Yulia. Yulia Stefanuk is Ukraine's special advisor for World Central Kitchen, and Yulia Visitska is Ukraine's media coordinator. Thanks very much for joining us. Let's start with Yulia S, I'll say, because I'm going to keep saying it maybe wrong. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with World Central Kitchen, and then we'll ask Yulia V.
Good day, team. Good day, everyone who help Ukraine. My name is Yulia Stefanuk. Right now, I'm a senior advisor World Central Kitchen mission in Ukraine, and I'm former country director. I worked for 1 year leading this mission, and right now I'm continue to helping my team and help World Central Kitchen to do the best for my Ukrainian people. My work with World Central Kitchen started on March 1st when I met the team and José Andrés in Lviv, who motivated us to feed thousands and thousands IDPs who left their cities around the border with the Russian Ukrainian territory. And our mission started with the desire to help thousands, but later in 2 years, we were able to help millions and millions Ukrainians.
Yeah, it's really just incredible. Now tell me, Yulia, what were you doing before you started working with World Central Kitchen? What were you doing before the war, and how did you get involved?
So before the war, I was a leader of catering company, and I help and I filled and I enjoy people with the meals. And after the invasion started, like full-scale invasion started in 2022, I'm immediately continue to feed Ukrainians. And what I can do, I have experience with a kitchen, organizing the big team to feed people, and I started to feed IDPs and people giving them not just enjoying, but giving them hope.
I think that's really the most important thing I take. And I know Jose always says that food, it's not just about nutrition, it's also about hope. And I think that's really one of the most important things I've seen with World Central Kitchen. Now, Yulia V, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing with World Central Kitchen.
Hi everyone, my name is Yulia and I'm really thrilled to be here today and share our story and the incredible work that our team is doing on the ground with WCK. So from March 2022 to the end of summer 2022, I was a regional lead for multiple departments, for multiple regions in Ukraine, mostly in the south of Ukraine, and I was deeply involved in the operational work, ensuring that WCK's food aid reached those who needed it most. And currently I serve as the lead for media and translations in Ukraine. And I, yeah, there was another question how I started working with WCK. So before the full-scale invasion, I primarily worked as an English teacher and translator in Kharkiv. But originally, I'm from the Donetsk region. And when the full-scale invasion started 2 years ago, I had already experienced a similar situation in 2014 in my hometown in Donbass. And that's why it was like double scary for me. And I remember those first weeks in Kharkiv, there was constant bombing, no food in the fridge. And I particularly vividly remember this feeling when you don't know if you will have something to eat tomorrow or next week. And that's when we went outside with my boyfriend and we went to the supermarket, we only saw empty supermarket shelves. And we didn't prepare because we never thought the full-scale invasion could ever really happen. And plus preparing for it would be kind of acknowledging it. That's why we did not prepare. So this fear of not having something to eat for the coming days was so overwhelming. And that's why upon evacuating to Lviv and meeting WCK coordinators there, joining their efforts became like the only logical choice for me. And it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And being able to help my people during such a difficult time while doing something that I love is really, really a genuine blessing.
Yeah, I remember when the war first started and people were thinking that they didn't make those kind of preparations because acknowledging that would be acknowledging that the invasion would happen. And I think that there was just some resolve that wasn't going to happen. Talk to us a little bit about how World Central Kitchen's response looks different in different cities across Ukraine. For instance, what are the needs of a frontline city versus an agricultural area? Or you said you were from the Donbass and they've been dealing with this for a long time. So how do the needs in different cities vary?
So WCK's work in Ukraine is all about being flexible and adapting to some specific needs of various cities and regions. And that's why our mission involves a wide range of programs, as Felix mentioned. And we brought in some innovative approaches. So for example, we decide whether to provide warm meals or food kits with all the ingredients that are needed for cooking. And this decision depends on whether people in particular area can cook for themselves or if they can't. If they can't due to some issues like constant shelling or lack of utilities, that's when we provide ready meals. We also provide vegetable kits to communities that have their garden and the land, but for some reason they cannot grow their own food due to some specific challenges, like those impacted by the Kakhovka Dam explosion in the Kherson region, for example. One of my favorite initiatives for the agricultural area is the Seed Project that actually gave the name for this webinar. It focuses on making the communities self-sustainable, and that's why I love it so much. And understanding that Ukraine, as you mentioned, Donbass, is all about farming and agriculture. It empowers the villages to plant and harvest for themselves, and this is crucial, I believe.
Yeah, that's so incredible. I mean, Ukraine, when we're hearing about this crisis around the world, like we know that Ukraine is really like the food basket for a lot of the world. So being able to continue to harvest, even to feed yourselves, is so important, again, to feel empowered during this war. Yulia S., how is the World Central Kitchen team in Ukraine structured to have impact across the country?
What is important, first of all, that now we have ability to build very sustainable team. You know, for these 2 years, we have local leaders in each city among the front line. It's Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Kryvyi Rih, Mykolaiv, like both Kherson region. And also we have a great team with the monitoring functions. We have amazing media team who are sharing information about our activation. We have very, very brave, and what we are proud, mostly emergency team, which responds for any emergency situation, not only frontline areas, but around Ukraine. You know, we have accidents almost every day with this missile strikes around Kiev, Lviv, Chernivtsi, another Dnipro, Zaporizhia region, and every day we are ready to help even our rescue teams and people who are suffering during these missile attacks, which are not predictable, which are very, very make people scaring. But we also stay close to our Ukrainians. We brought hot meals, we are serving tea, coffee, and this is special moments when we can show that they are not alone, and we are ready to stay with them during such a hard moments.
Yeah. Yulia V., tell us about some of your Ukrainian teammates and what a day looks like. And then I'm going to go to Yulia S. I really want to know, what is the day in a life of a World Central Kitchen coordinator?
So we have a dedicated team of specialists all over the country. And I think for every member of our team, depending on what tasks they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, the day looks different. But I can definitely say that every member of our local teams, it can be drivers, warehouse workers, or specialists who work from home, is a hero in its own right, because they face challenging conditions to keep our mission running smoothly. And additionally, I can definitely say about our emergency team, they're working day and night to contribute to the success of our key operations. So yeah, everybody is great, and I think everybody's day is full of different tasks.
And Yulia, what about for you? Talk to me about what's a day in the life. I mean, I would just imagine there are so many different variables to think about.
You know, in some way, we have our special Ukrainian normality. We call it. It's
The new normal.
Yeah, it's a new normal for all of us. But because we still need to live our lives, we should enjoy our lives. But every day we are checking hundreds telegram and news about the situation, what's happening around. We really know with missile hit in what city. We are sharing information, what's going on. So we should be almost all the day, 24 hours, to be ready to respond. So it's mean that our life still based on, even in some places we have like some kind normal life, but we still, as a big team, we stay and help each other with some you know, sometimes it's an unpredictable situation can happen, and we are ready to respond, and we can ready to join from Kiev to come to our team in Kherson or in Kharkiv, helping them to providing meals. And even we are really expecting for new liberated territory, and we are planning how to help people who are now struggling of food.
Yeah. Yulia V., you're the media coordinator in Ukraine for World Central Kitchen. So you're responsible for sharing these incredible stories like all the ones we're hearing. How does your team approach storytelling? And what do you think the most important thing for people outside Ukraine to know?
I really appreciate this question. As a media coordinator for WCK in Ukraine, I can say that when it comes to storytelling, we keep it real and impactful. And for me, each story is like a window into the lives of those affected, which help us create a connection with our global audience. And on the ground, we always take an individual approach. And surprisingly, people are always happy to share their stories. And we communicate to people, we explain why it's important for the world to know what you're going through. And when I think about this question, there is one specific community that comes to mind. It's in the Kherson region, and there are only 4 people that are staying there after the constant shelling and the occupation because they have nowhere to go. And we are the only team that goes to them. And you know what? They are so happy to chat because in this situation, they don't feel forgotten when we show up. And we say this a lot, but this is real. The people don't feel forgotten, and it's very important for them to know that somebody cares about them and that somebody remembers that they're still there. And as for the second part of the question, what's crucial for the people outside Ukraine to know, I would say that the crisis, the humanitarian crisis, is ongoing. And although Ukrainian people are very strong, we still need support. And also that beyond the headlines that you can see, and I know that they have been constant, right? We are talking about the real people, real individuals that we are meeting every day, and they're facing this adversity with such courage and determination. And these stories just, they need to be heard.
Thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, I want to ask one last question for both of you. Julia S., we'll start with you. We learned earlier about, you told us about the Seeds of Hope program. Now, obviously, it's just a beautiful name for the agriculture program, but also for what I hope we're doing here today, which is planting the seed that there is hope for the future. So what gives you hope? What keeps you motivated to continue to do this work under these incredibly extraordinary circumstances?
First of all, as for me, it's love to my country and really big hope to wait our victory very soon. Because all of us can contribute by themselves in a small steps by step moving forward to our victory. It's in our hands and hearts to see how our country will be celebrate Victory Day. Another point which motivates me, it's our team, it's our people who are fighting every day in different points, who are crossing their big challenges. And believe we are pretty strong enough because we have a good friends around the world who help us to stand, to help us to continue fight. So I really appreciate for all food fighters around the world who help in Wars of the Kitchen, who help our country to defend that's all.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Yulia V, talk to us also. What gives you hope and keeps you motivated? I'm sure there are some days like just even getting out of bed and facing the day is a challenge. Talk to us about what gives you hope to keep going for the future.
What gives me hope is witnessing the resilience and the strength of Ukrainians and the people that we are serving, the people that I'm working with, because in all these weird circumstances, terrible circumstances, their determination to continue living and rebuild their life and create something new, create a better future, it's inspiring. And as for motivation, for me, it's about knowing that the work that we are doing, whether it's distributing the aid on ground or telling stories, filming, it has a tangible impact. And every small effort that we are doing on ground, it creates a larger positive change in total. And the communities that we serve, the individuals that we assist, and their gratitude and hope that they hold on despite these challenges keeps me motivated. It's about this collective effort and being part of that, seeing this progress, no matter how small or big, it's what keeps my motivation going.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, so much for being here today and so generously sharing your story. We're I mean, I'm personally, but I know that everyone here today is just humbled by the work you do and your commitment to supporting your country. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. As you've heard, the need in Ukraine continues, and World Central Kitchen is committed to supporting families during this intensely difficult time. Now, I know there have been some chats that, this is all about money. It's not. It's about what Jose has said, that food is hope. And we can't forget Ukraine. So if you're watching today, I know you're thinking about the people in Ukraine and the incredible work that World Central Kitchen is doing. But if you do want to help the effort, the absolute best thing you could do is to donate, to allow World Central Kitchen to continue to be as flexible and adaptable as possible. So if you would like to donate, visit World Central Kitchen /Seeds of Hope -donate. That's on their website, or scan the QR code on your closing slide. Thank you so much for your support of World Central Kitchen and for your support of Ukraine and for believing in this work. I'm Elise Labott, and thank you for joining us.